A keymap is a group of Blender hotkeys, and you can actually change Blender's default hotkeys to match your own workflow, making it more comfortable and potentially even faster. In this video, I'll show you how it's done.
Frenzy.
Welcome to Blender Frenzy, I'm Justin. Let's talk about the 8 steps to creating a solid custom keymap. First things first, be careful. This process is still very buggy, and it must be done in the exact order of these 8 steps. Step 1, save a copy of your current Blender configurations. Step 2, load Blender's factory default settings just for the duration of this process. Don't worry, you'll be able to restore all of your previous configurations at the end. Step 3, locate Blender's default hotkeys. You can find them in the menu dropdowns, and you can find them in the preferences. Step 4, turn off autosave preferences. Counterintuitively, during this process, we don't want Blender to save our changes. Step 5 is where we actually change Blender's default hotkeys. This part is actually quick and easy and pretty straightforward. Step 6 is to export your custom keymap without saving the preferences. Step 7 is where we revert to our saved preferences or restore our previous configurations. And finally, step 8 is where we import our custom keymap that we made with all of our hotkey changes. And like I said, this process is very buggy and must be done in the exact order of these 8 steps to avoid headaches, heartaches, and tears. So step 1, best practice, is to back up your Blender configurations, which you can find in your Blender version folder on your local machine. I'll post up on the screen some of the common paths to the various operating systems, but just know that it may be different for your own machine. Now, I'm using Linux and I'm launching Blender with the Blender launcher. Okay, so here's my path with the Blender versions installed. We're going to be focusing on 5.0, of course, and you can see if we open that up, it contains our configurations, such as our bookmarks, recent files, user preferences, and extensions and scripts, which is where the keymap will eventually go. So my recommendation is just to make a copy of this entire folder and then paste it right here. And that way it has all of our same configurations and we can restore this at the end. So now step 2 is to load Blender's factory default settings. So let's go to Blender, File, Defaults, and Load Factory Settings. If you're sure about it, you can go ahead and click Load. And now we have Blender's factory default settings. And alternatively, if we close Blender, I can actually just delete this and rename this one back. And that's how we would restore all of our preferences. But we can actually back up our files and load factory default settings in one fell swoop if we just initially rename this to something like hold. Now the next time we open up Blender, it's going to load factory default settings. And you can see it automatically added a new 5.0 folder. Okay, so step 3 is to locate Blender's default hotkeys. So let's open up a new video editing. Now in this video, I'm focused on the video sequence editor, but this process works in all of Blender, whatever you're using Blender for. And I'm going to quick open up preferences. You don't have to do this. I'm just going to make the interface 1.2 just a little bit bigger for you to see in this tutorial. And we will be using our preferences, but I don't want to pop up, so I'm going to close this. We're going to expand this, change this area to a preferences, and this is the same thing. So Blender's hotkeys are located in 2 areas. First is the drop-down menu. You can see the name on the left and the hotkey on the right. If there is no hotkey listed, that means it doesn't have one, but you can see that through all of the menu items here. The other way to find them is to go to the preferences and click Keymap, and then you can see the initial preferences here, but you can also scroll down and see a whole bunch of them throughout all Blender. You've got the 2D view, the 3D view, graph editor, dope sheet, and of course the video sequence editor. And you can open up these and see here are the hotkeys, and there's actually quite a bit of them for video sequence editor. So before we change them, step 4, best practice, is to go to preferences and uncheck autosave preferences. Then a new button will pop up here, save preferences with an asterisk. And if you actually are using the preferences pop-up, it's going to be down here instead of up here. Open up this menu and then you can uncheck autosave there. This step is really important, especially if you didn't save a copy of your configurations. Okay, and now step 5, we can actually change our default hotkeys. I'm going to go to strip and we're going to test it out with split and hold split. So in the menu, it's very easy to change. All you have to do is right click, click change shortcut, and then press a key. I'm going to press F, and now you can see there is a new hotkey. The second way you can change it is through the menu. Now, this is called split, so I'm just going to search for split up here. Split, hit enter so we can scroll. And now we need to look for sequencer, And unfortunately, these are not in alphabetical order, so we're just gonna have to scroll down, and here we go, we see sequencer, and you can see F and Shift K, which now matches this. And you can see all of these X's except for the one we've changed, which is this arrow, along with this restore button. We'll get to that in a minute, but to change the Shift K, let's click it here, and then we can press Shift F. And you can see we now have another arrow. Now we can restore these individually by clicking these arrows, and now they turn into X's, and the restore button disappears. I'm going to change this back again. If you want to restore everything under sequencer, you can see that this is where the restore button is. We can click restore, and it will change all of them at the same time. But be careful, it changes everything under the sequencer, even the ones we don't see, because remember right now we're using a filter called split. Something else you'll want to keep in mind is that K and Shift K here are split and hold split here, but both of them are actually called something different in the preferences, split strips and split strips. So just know that the menu names and the preferences names don't always match. And the way we can tell the difference between what's split and hold split here, aside from the hotkeys, is by opening up the drop-down. Each hotkey has its own unique buttons and switches. Just so you can see here, we've got a soft split and a hard split. And that's what the hold split is. Here, it's called hard. But I want to take a moment to talk about searching in these Keymap preferences. So if I get rid of this, you can see that the Blender default Keymap has this preferences. I'm just going to collapse this because your custom Keymap won't include that. I'm going to collapse this. When you're searching by name, there are some shortcomings. First, as you know, the split and hold split are called something different than when we search in the preferences. You can see that they are split strips, but also these main categories are not searchable. Now, you might think so at first. So if I type outliner, you can see that we got outliner here, but this is not what it's actually searching. What it's probably searching is the searchable identifier. To prove this, I'm going to go down to property editor and I'm going to start typing property, oh, nothing, editor. I'm going to type in editor, nothing. So just know that these main categories are not searchable. Another shortcoming is that it's not always intuitive. So if you want to hide strips, you would think that hide strips would be a thing, but it's not. You have to search for mute strips. And mute strips is H, Shift H, and Alt H now. They all do a little bit different things depending on their event properties, but we knew that thankfully from the menu because that is the name that is given here. But intuitively you might have thought hide, so just know that sometimes these names are not the most intuitive. But even if you get that right, there's still another shortcoming, is that sometimes Blender is not internally consistent with its nomenclature. So for example, if I wanted to center the playhead, I can hover down over here and press numpad 0. Now that over here in the view is called go to current frame. But if I come up here and type go to current frame, you can see we have that here for these 4 editors, but it doesn't have it for all of the timeline editors. So for that, if I type center, now you can see for the clip graph editor, numpad 0, which does the exact same thing, is called center current frame. So it's not always internally consistent. So even if you do know the name, it might be different somewhere else. So just keep that in mind. But the nice thing is if you're looking for a hotkey and you don't know the name, but you do know the hotkey, like for example, let's say we didn't know what this was called, but we did know it's numpad 0. Well, we can also search for key binding. So if I just type in numpad 0, enter, then we can see all the places in Blender where numpad 0 exists. And we can just scroll down to sequencer and then find the name. Ah, okay, there we go. Go to current frame. And we can also now see center current frame right there. So searching for key binding is also helpful, but just be aware that if you do change the hotkey from the key binding filter, it will disappear because it's searching for this key binding. So if I click here and press 1 on the numpad, it's going to disappear because we're searching for numpad 0 and it's no longer numpad 0. So we have to do numpad 1 and sequencer. Now this has been changed, and I'm just going to restore that. And of course, we have to go back to 0 to find it again. So those are some of the pros and cons of searching in the Keymap preferences. But for now, we can collapse these. And then I'm going to change them again, F, Shift F, and we're going to pretend this is all we want to change. So this is our new custom Keymap. Now we are ready for step 6, which is to export the Keymap. Now we want to export it without saving preferences, without doing anything else. Click Export. And you can save this in any folder you want. So I've created a new folder called Keymap, and then I'm just going to say my custom Keymap, and then export. So now step 7 is to revert to our saved preferences or restore our original Blender version folder like we did at the beginning. So I'll show you this first. So we don't want to save because it's going to save Blender as our new Keymap. So we come to preferences and then revert to saved preferences. And since our saved preferences were the factory defaults, it restores everything to the factory defaults. This particular step isn't necessary if you copied the folder and you're going to restore that, but it's still good to know before you import. So I'm just going to go ahead and import right now. And then go find your Keymap, and you can either click it and then click import or double click it, doesn't matter. And now we have my custom Keymap here, and if we scroll down, we have F and Shift F for the split strips. I can actually just make this easier by typing strips here so that we don't have to scroll down. And now you can see I can switch back to Blender, and it's K and Shift K. Now they are separate. And in the dropdown, you can see Blender has 3 default Keymaps: Blender, which is the current version of Blender, Blender 2.7x, which is an older version of Blender, and then industry compatible. So if I click that one, you can see it's got its own completely different hotkeys. And this is for people who are more familiar with industry software such as Maya, 3ds Max, and the Adobe products. And now let me demonstrate why we have to do it in the exact same steps. So if we come back to my custom Keymap, let's say, oh, actually, I want to change this. So we're going to change this one to 7 and this one to Shift 7. This is what we would expect. However, if we now change it to Blender, you can see it's changed it for Blender as well. And it's changed it for industry compatible, at least for the one that does exist for that. And Blender 2.7x. This is also why we can't just click here, which you would think we can just add a custom Keymap, another Keymap. Okay, so now another Keymap, let's say change this to 8 and Shift 8. So another Keymap, well now if I go to Blender, now it's 8 and Shift 8, and then my custom Keymap is also 8 and Shift 8. This is why we can't do it this way either. And this is also why we don't want to have our auto save preferences on, which is now checked because we reverted to the defaults. Once we change these, it just auto saves it as the preferences. And speaking of defaults, we are still using our defaults. So I'm actually just going to exit out of Blender. And now we're going to just delete this one and rename our original Blender version folder back to its original. And now when we open up Blender, we should now have all of our user preferences, configurations, add-ons, everything, but we don't have the custom Keymap yet, so we have to go and import that. So let's go back to video editing. Let's make this the preferences again. Go to Keymap, and now we just have the Blender default Keymaps. And so now, since we have all of our original configurations, we're going to import our custom Keymap on top of those. So go find your Keymap file, double click it, and now we've added my custom Keymap. And if we search for split strips, we now have F and Shift F, and now we can switch back and forth because they're not the same. They're different and completely separate from one another. So that is the Keymap creation process. If you follow those 8 steps, then you're more likely to have a pretty solid custom Keymap. Now, there still can be bugs. I can't guarantee you won't have any. Some people have talked about bugs in reference to their plugins that they have, things like duplicating Keymaps and other weird stuff. I'll leave a link to some of the bug reports in the post, including one of mine that has a lot of conversation with the devs and some other people. But I hope you can do this for yourself bug-free. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and you will see me in the next one. If you edit videos in Blender and want to double your editing speed, you can download my free custom Keymap that tweaks Blender's VSE hotkeys for a lightning-fast, right-handed workflow, updated for Blender 5. You'll get my personal Keymap that you can import directly into Blender, which works right out of the box, a searchable cheat sheet PDF of all hotkeys I changed in reference to Blender's own defaults, and an Excel sheet you can use to make your own cheat sheet if you so choose. Link is in the post.